Hello everybody, welcome to the Daily Sip. My name is Oliver and my mission is to bring you closer to organic Japanese green tea. And today's Friday, so I thought I could do just a quick tasting of one of our teas and present you this tea a little bit in the close-up, go deep on the information we got about this tea and to give you a little bit of an insight also of the taste of the tea. And today in the center of interest is the Hagiricha Mafuji. So it is a Sencha which is non-shaded. Often when I talked in recent times, I used teas which were shaded or from a shaded field. Shading means in Japan is that just before the harvest, the farmers, they cover their tea plants with so-called cabooses, which are kind of under kind of black covers, black nylon covers, and this finally can then evolve into a very beautiful and very sweet tea as you cover a little bit or you push up the theanine, so the amino acids a little bit, and the catechins, so the stringency of the tea goes a little bit down, making the tea smooth, making the tea sweet and quite fruity. But when you dive into the world of Japanese green tea, it is not only the shaded teas which are very sweet, but there are also some good fields which are not so much exposed to sunlight, which can make a very beautiful and fine tea. And this is also the case with this one here. So it is an unshaded tea. It is not exposed too much to sunlight, and the tea leaves are quite dark, even though it is never covered during the whole stage from growing the leaf until the end. And you really can see this tea is actually quite a nice tea in terms of longer needles. So when you talk about in Japan about longer needles, then you talk about this size here. So it's quite a big, beautiful, nicely rolled leaf. And the tea itself, so the color of the tea, what you see is quite dark. So for an unshaded tea, it also has a little bit this glimmering, so a little bit this kind of nearly which you can candlelight shimmer on it. And this is normally something you only see with tea which is actually shaded just before the harvest. But this one is not shaded, and it is also a so-called asamushi, meaning that it is lightly steamed, so it just touched by the steam, very, very short time, around 30 seconds. It is in the steam bath, and then this tea is taken out and going through the process of drying, also not making the tea sweet. So the steaming kind of steaming process of this tea is not there to make the tea sweeter. Otherwise it would be a longer steamed or so-called deeper steamed fukamushi style tea. But this is not the case with this one here. So it is asamushi, non-shaded, from the prefecture of Shizuoka. Shizuoka, the biggest region for Japanese green tea in terms of production. Some people say 50, some people say 45, some others say 40% of the whole production of green tea is coming from Shizuoka. And in Shizuoka, the main tea type or green tea plant type which is used is the Yabukita. And so also this tea is actually Yabukita cultivar. So around 95% of the Yabukita or of the tea which is created or grown in Shizuoka is Yabukita. Yabukita, known or kind of came into vogue around 1908, like around there it really came into fruition because it kind of solved the big problem of the farmers especially in the kind of higher parts of Japan where Shizuoka is as well located, and there they often had the problems of frost, and Yabukita gives a good yield, is strong against the cold, and it also in taste-wise or taste aspect, it is a very beautiful tea. And for this, also in the region of Shizuoka, nowadays you still find around 95%, which is from the Yabukita. This tea is also grown at a higher height, so we talk about 450 meters. In Japan, this is considered a mountain tea. People consuming Chinese tea would say, what? In China, people grow tea about 2,000-3,000 meters above sea level. So we are in Japan rather at a lower height. So here 450 is actually the tea which I have here on this level. It is grown. And what is also important for this tea, it is 100% first harvest. First harvest is the harvest which is the richest in mineral. The first harvest is the sweetest one, and it also has the biggest amount of nutrients. And that's why this tea is quite rich in complexity. That's why this tea is quite rich in kind of its broadness of taste, and that's what I'm gonna dive into now. So I take 5 grams of the tea. I'm gonna brew it for around 1 minute. This is the perfect time. And I take around 150 milliliters of water. So I just gonna set this up. I used also 65 degrees water. Now I didn't preheat the Kyusu, so I imagine that the temperature dropped around 5 degrees, 4 to 5. So I assume that I'm around 60 degrees. In Japan, often it is indicated that for the green tea you should brew it at around 70, 75 degrees, especially when you talk about the sencha. Here in this case, I for myself also found out that 60 degrees is just that temperature which brings out the most smoothness and sweetness in the tea. So if I already have a tea which is non-shaded, which is made with asamushi, so short steaming, not provoking a sweet kind of taste profile of the tea, then I rather go down a little bit with the temperature, and this often helps to sweeten the tea a little bit. And now we're already at 1 minute, and we're gonna pour the tea into the glass. And you see it is quite a light liquid which is coming from the tea. It's more of a beautiful golden color and quite a clear tea. So often when you have teas which have longer needles, which is beautifully curated, then the tea has less sediments also in it, and the tea gives less color to the tea water. When we just look at it from the nose side, a lot of nuttiness. There's a little bit of a floral part to it. A little bit of sweet, kind of sweet corn, but it's much more dominated by this with a little bit of a cereally, nutty flavor profile with quite some florally sweetness. Now, in terms of taste, let's see. It's a very fine, very light. There's a little bit of a creaminess with it, but it's very light. So it's quite. The water is not dense in any shape or form. It's just over the tongue. It seems that it gives just a little bit of a kind of a small rolling texture, small rolling feeling, which you know a little bit from the denser teas, but this one here is not as long shaded, or is not as shaded as a Gyokuro, which then really has this whole smooth and roundness and nearly a little bit of a heavy texture. This one still stays quite light, but brings along a slight creaminess with it, which is very, very beautiful. There's a slight freshness swinging also with the taste. I have a little bit of a citrusy flavor profile, but it's very smooth and very light, so it doesn't drift off into kind of a stringent taste profile or into refreshing. There's no tingling on top of the tongue. It's just a nice, sweet, and it drifts, or it goes into a more of a florally note, which is also a very, very beautiful way of brewing a tea, where you don't have clearly this kind of sweet, calm, strong umami flavor. On the other hand, you don't have the freshness or the refreshing taste profile of the citrusy, nearly a little bit astringent profile, but it's kind of a sweet, creamy, nice, florally flavor profile, which gives you just the right middle between these two taste profiles. So it's a very beautiful asamushi tea which is not too strong in the savoriness, which you might have with the Fukamushi. Fukamushi is a little bit more kind of on the savory flavor profile, with a little bit of the acidity, with a little bit of a tingling on the top of the tongue. Mm-hmm. You have a little bit of a cereally background note as well. So that was brewing number 1. You definitely can do several brewings with this one too. Let's just give it a rinse, or give it a second steeping, very short one. Our rinse is different. Good. You can see now in the second steeping that we go a little bit more into a more kind of a little bit of a milky profile, but still quite clear. There's a little bit of milkiness coming out, so now I'm curious. Let's see the leaves. Much more grassiness is coming after this tea. Let's see how the taste evolves. So the creaminess has gone away, leaving a little bit more space for a little bit of a citrusy note. And it gets much more refreshing. So the floral note becomes stronger, but they're mixed with a little bit of a citrusy note. There's a small tingling of the tongue. So the tea kind of from this a little bit creamy, florally, smooth flavor profile opens up a little bit more and gives a little bit more space to the refreshing notes. The creaminess goes a little bit down, so it goes away. Somehow it seems that a little bit the essential oils are coming out, especially with the first brewing, but then in the second brewing you definitely go much more into kind of this a little bit refreshing and more florally flavor profile. So shifting the tea, and this is also nice that you can, from pour to pour, you just have a different taste profile with this one here. So assume also on the third steeping this will go a little bit further in the citrusy flavor profile. Here you really have to take care that you don't drift off too much in the astringency, so no shaking, no too much turning the leaves. Just pour the second steeping, the third steeping in, let it rest for only 10-15 seconds, and then pour it back. Not too long, because otherwise you're gonna have a too astringent tea. So a little bit delicate on the second and third one for sure, but it still stays a very smooth and very sweet tea. So this was this. I hope you like this one. Mafuji Sencha from the region of Shizuoka. I wish you a great evening, and thanks a lot for watching, and I guess I'll see you next week. Today, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we are off. Thanks a lot. See you and bye-bye.